The one of Bethlehem, as can be reviewed in the Gospels, is a star that moves and also stops. It is not strange for a star to be apparently still in the sky, as those we normally see seem to be, nor for a star to move, as is the case with shooting stars or comets. What is really unusual is for a star to do both, move and stop. And that he also proves to be intelligent. And behold, the star that they had seen in the east went ahead of them, until it stopped over the place where the child was. Matthew 2:9. Some shepherds were keeping watch in those surroundings, and keeping watch by night over their king, when suddenly an angel of the Lord appeared near them, and a divine light surrounded them with his brightness. Luke 2:8-9. This quote serves only to point out the similarity between the setting of a scene and that of the Marian apparitions, and so that the conclusions of this comparison can be drawn when the angel announces the birth of Bethlehem. Let us return, then, to the star. Vyacheslav Zaitsev quotes the narration of the three wise men, apocryphal. Apparently written in Latin in the middle of the 3rd century and later translated into other languages in its Belarusian version of the 15th century, where it can be read that for a whole day without disturbing the air, the star hung over Mount Wands and refers to some books according to which Jesus Christ came out of that star. But the star was not as in our countries they painted in the churches. It had wings like eagles and many long rays, which moved it in a circle when it descended to Mount Wands. In Apocryphos, Volume 2, another legend appears that quotes the same form again. During the journey, which lasted 13 days, the Magi had no need for it, and this period seemed to them to have lasted no more than 1 day. 1. The closer they got to Bethlehem, the more intense the shine of the star. This one had the shape of an eagle, flying through the air and flapping its wings. In the book of Seth it speaks of the future appearance of this star and that the Magi glorified God in silence and in a low voice. It is later said that they prayed and praised God in silence for 3 days. They did this during each generation, always waiting, in case this star of happiness happened to appear during their generation. Finally he appeared on this Mount of Victory, in the form of a little child and presenting the figure of a cross. Let us remember again the Marian apparitions. He spoke to them, instructed them and ordered them to embark on the path to Judea. Singular behavior for a star. The star seemed like this to them for 2 years, and neither the plan nor the water ever lacked them in their travels. Also in the Exodus there is a similar help with manna. In his study of the Epistle of the Ephesians, chapter 19, St. Ignatius highlights the newness of that star, which made those who contemplated it remain mute with stupor. And the theologian and exegete Diodorus of Tarsus, who lived in the 4th century, affirms, that this star was not one of those that populate the sky, but rather a certain uranodiurnal virtue or force, which had assumed the form of a star. Another promising star Varro tells us in the Antiquitates Rerum Humanorum, in which, referring to the legend of Aeneas, he says that when he had left Troy, the star of Venus shone every day and during the day, until it reached the fields. Laurentino, where he stopped seeing her, which gave him to understand that those were the lands marked by destiny. It is clear that a star that is seen during the day and that suddenly stops being seen, could hardly have been Venus, or was it that even then, as in our days, the long-suffering morning star was officially burdened with UFO visions? Referring to the Star of Bethlehem, Zaitsev asks, would not the cosmic interpretation of the version of the Apocrypha, the narrative of the three wise men, contribute to revealing the mystery? Let's look at even other passages, to then return to the Star of Bethlehem. Quotes about the luminous cloud or another luminous object occur throughout the biblical texts, also accompanying voices arising from above. We will give only 2 examples. In the Gospel of St. Matthew we read, 17:1. 6 days later Jesus took Peter, James, and John, his brother, and led them away to a mountain somewhere. And he was transfigured before them, his face shone like the sun and his clothes became white as light. And Moses and Elijah appeared to them talking to him. Peter spoke up and said to Jesus, Lord, how good it is for us here. If you want, I will make 3 tents here, one for you, one for Moses and one for Elijah. While he was still speaking, a bright cloud covered them, and a voice came out of the cloud saying, This is my beloved Son, in whom I am well pleased, listen to him. Returning to the Apocrypha, the Arabic Gospel of the Infancy reads, referring to Jesus, already 30 years old, LIV, the Father made him publicly known on the bank of the Jordan with this voice coming down from heaven, This is my beloved Son, in whom I rest, with the Holy Spirit present in the form of a white dove. Let's move on to the column of light. In the Apocrypha of Infancy, and specifically in the aforementioned Arabic Gospel of Infancy, called a little more than the Arabic version of it, it is said, with reference to Jesus, Vi. 1. And when his mother, the Virgin Mary, carrying him joyfully in her arms, old Simeon saw him resplendent like a column of light. In the Syriac redaction of the same Apocrypha, identified years later, it is said that it was Mary whom the elderly Simeon saw like a pillar of light. We will return to the theme of the cloud and the luminous column in the section The Bible. The same Syriac wording of the aforementioned Gospel of Infancy, when discussing 7:1, the adoration of the Magi, refers that on the very night of the birth a guardian angel is sent to Persia, who appears in the form of a bright star to the children, magnates of the kingdom. Then 3 kings, guided by this same angel who had taken Habakkuk, Daniel 14:33, to the reapers. And the angel of the Lord took him and said to Habakkuk, Lord, I have never seen Babylon in the lion's den. And the angel of the Lord took him by the crown of his head, by the hair of his head, and led him to Babylon, over the den, with the speed of the Spirit. Thus Daniel received the food. And he got up and ate, and immediately the angel of God restored Habakkuk to his place, guided by the 3 kings. As we said, by this angel, they arrived at Jerusalem, where they asked about the newborn king. Herod interrogates them. When I left his palace, the star appeared again to the Magi, but this time in the form of a column of fire. They adore the child, and during the night of the 5th day of the week after the Nativity, the angel they saw in Persia appears to them again in the form of a star, who accompanies them until they reach their country. After detailed explanations that, analyzing the particular, leave aside the basics, that is, giving very convincing explanations for each specific problem, forgetting the global essence of the phenomenon, Werner Keller concludes that the phenomenon that guided the Magi to the stable of Bethlehem was the conjunction, last of a series of 3 at that time, of the planets Jupiter and Saturn in the constellation of the Fish. And he says, on the road to Hebron, about 7 kilometers from Jerusalem, is located the village of Bethlehem, the ancient Bethlehem of Judah. The old path that had already been traveled by Abraham in his time leads almost exactly from north to south. In their third conjunction, the planets Jupiter and Saturn joined together in such a way that they seemed to form a single star. In the evening twilight, they were visible in the southern direction in such a way that the Magi from the east, on the route they followed from Jerusalem to Bethlehem, always had the star before their eyes. The star was, in fact, just as the Gospel says, preceding them. Very good. But if they had always continued in the direction indicated by the conjunction of Jupiter and Saturn, and because this was an extra-atmospheric phenomenon, which therefore, no matter how far the Magi advanced, it would always be located in front of them, if they had continued in the direction of this conjunction, we repeat, where they would have arrived would have been death by immersion in the coastal waters of the Red Sea. But not. They stopped just a few kilometers 7 from Jerusalem. Because they were not in pursuit of the conjunction of Jupiter-Saturn, but in pursuit of a brilliant object that, literally quoting St. Matthew 2:9, preceded them, until it came to stand above the place where the child. This detail, that the star stopped above a certain place, and therefore moved within the atmosphere and apparently at not too high a height, is what Keller omits without scruple in his analysis. Analysis that, therefore, lacks validity. This, if we stick only to the biblical text accepted by the Church. Because we also stick to the Apocrypha, we will see that this same star descended, took on different forms, spoke, and even returned to accompany the Magi to their country of origin. Be that as it may, the only thing we can affirm after almost 2,000 years of its appearance, is that the aforementioned Star of Bethlehem continues to be for us, with all its letters, an unidentified flying and luminous object. The ancient chronicles cited, they attest to this. Thanks you for watching the video. Don't forget to subscribe my channel. Here we talk about the alien reality smile. See you in the next video.